Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. So in today's tutorial, we're going to talk about a new project that I have created. So I have created this simple website. It's just a website that has a dashboard for data visualization. So we're going to create this using Python, and you can see I added some cool animations using JavaScript. So this is the website that you're going to be creating in this tutorial. It's just a simple web application. It has I'm going to use Plotly, so it has different functionalities. So I can zoom, I can restore, and I can do just a lot of things. So I can even download the images. I can do a lot of things. So this is the website that you're going to be creating, and we're going to be using JavaScript and other libraries. So you can see I can even draw 3D graphs. I can zoom into those 3D graphs and do a lot of stuff, and can even record the video when I'm doing that. Reset the camera for zooming. So it has a lot of functionality for this project that you're going to be building. So you can also draw different bar graphs, so you can draw unlimited amount of graphs. So if you really want to check how many graphs you can draw, you're going to be using a library called Plotly, and you can go to Plotly and can find all kinds of graphs that you can draw. Okay, so the language you're going to be using is Python, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and I also use Bootstrap for the styling. Okay, just to keep the video simple without having to write our custom CSS. So you're going to be basically that's what you're going to be building. So let's get started. So let's just go into my terminal. You can see I'm running this from my localhost, so I'm going to stop this for now, and then I'm going to clear the terminal. So now that I have cleared the terminal, let me go ahead and actually change directory and make a new project. So I'm going to source deactivate. I'm going to deactivate this. I'm going to deactivate my my current environment. Okay, so I'm going to make a new directory here. I'm going to call it Flask Plotly tutorial. You can call it anything you want. So I've just created a simple folder, so I'm going to navigate into that folder. So Flask and then Plotly tutorial. I'm going to go into that folder. So I'm in that folder right now. You can see I have nothing inside of that folder currently. It's just an empty folder. So for us to get started, I'm going to create a virtual environment. So let me just make this bigger so that you guys can see. I'm going to create a virtual environment. So if you don't know what a virtual environment is, you can just Google it and search how you can create a virtual environment in Python. I'm going to do this. The code that the command that I'm going to be using is only going to be working for Linux and MacBook. If you're on Windows, there is a custom code for it, so you can go and Google and search for that code. Again, you don't need to create a virtual environment if you don't want. So but it's a good practice to create a virtual environment, and in my other videos I have demonstrated, I have posted links on how to create video virtual environment using Windows. So it's actually very simple. You can just Google it or search it on Google. It's very simple. Okay, so I'm going to create a virtual environment for our project. So I'm just going to do Python 3 -m vnv vnv and then vnv. Okay, this is going to work only for Python, only for Linux and Mac users. Okay, if you're on Windows, please go ahead and search for the custom command. Okay, it's just one line of command. You copy it and paste in your terminal, and then that's that. So now that you have the virtual environment, if I do ls, you can see I have a folder in there called venv, which is the name that I specified here. Now great, let me go ahead and actually activate the virtual environment so that you can use it, so that Python knows which environment that you are using. So I'm going to do source venv / this is going to be bin /activate. Okay, I'm going to activate the virtual environment. So this is venv. Okay, make sure I get the name right. So now you can see the virtual environment is activated, and the name of the virtual environment is in front of the line right there. So now that you're if you're on Windows, this won't work for you, so go and Google the command to activate your virtual environment. Again, you don't need to create a virtual environment if you don't want. So now that I have that set up, let me go ahead and actually install the libraries that we need to do. So I'm going to do pip3, or you can just do pip install. You're going to install pandas. You're going to install pandas. You're going to install Flask. You're going to install Plotly, and you're going to install Plotly -express. So these are libraries that we need to install. So I'm going to press enter, and this is going to go ahead and actually install those libraries. So it's going to take a bit of time, and then it's going to go ahead. Could not satisfy the requirement version. Plotly. Okay, I made an error. That's Plotly express. Okay, Plotly Express. Okay, my bad. So you're going to install that library for us. So pandas, Flask, Plotly, and the Plotly Express. So these are the libraries that we need to be able to create our web application to look the way we want it to look. Okay, so this is just the web application having all this navigation. You can download the images, you can zoom, you can do all kinds of things. And the library that we're going to be using to plot this is called Plotly Express. And for us to be able to use Plotly Express, I believe you also need to install Plotly. That's the reason why I'm installing this. And then the backend that is going to be serving this is going to be Flask. And then the pandas is just for us to work with CSV files and other files like databases and be just able to manipulate data using Python. So that's why we're going to install those specific libraries. We're also going to add this cool animation of sliding effects whenever we scroll. We're going to be using a library called, I believe it's called AOS. So this is the library. I'm going to leave the link in the description where you can find this this library on GitHub. Okay, it's very great library to use. So it's the library that we're going to be using to enable this cool fade in and fade out animations. Okay, so let's check if we have that installed already. So ignore that error for now. We just have to wait for this to get installed and then we can continue. So let's just wait for that to install. Okay, okay, so while that is still installing, I'm going to be telling you something that you're going to be doing in this project. So in this project, I'm going to teach you how to create a whole full application having multiple file structure by the best practice of how you can do to structure your Flask application in case you want to scale it or in case you want to build a really large application. So I'm going to teach you how you can arrange the folders and what should be in what folder and what should be in what file. So in case you want to scale your Flask application, it will be much easier for you to scale it. Okay, so let me just clear that. So for what you're going to do for now, I'm going to create another directory. So I'm going to make mkdir. I'm going to call it application. Okay, so I'm going to call it application. So now that we have that application, I'm also going to create a file called run.py. Okay, in the root directory of our project. So I'm going to just say touch run.py. Okay, or if you don't know how to do this in the terminal, let's just go and do it in VS Code instead. So let me just remove the directory that I have created, application. I'm just going to remove it. So right now what we simply have is just virtual environment. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and actually open up my Visual Studio Code, and then I'm going to demonstrate to you how to create this application structure so that your Flask application can be scalable and be used across multiple huge applications. Okay, so now that has loaded, so let me just go, we are in here. So I'm going to create a folder in my root directory. I'm going to call it application. So I'm going to press enter, and then once that is done, you're also going to create another Python file. We're going to call this one run.py. So we're going to go ahead and create a Python file called run.py. So let's just wait for this to create. I don't know why my PC is being a bit slow today. So great. So now we're going to go into application, and we're going to create another folder called templates. We are going to keep our templates, and then we're going to create also another folder in there called static. So you can know by static, we're going to keep our static files like we're going to keep our static files like HTML, image files, and other stuff. Okay, so let me just explain to you. So in our application, we have in our root directory, we have two files that we have created. We have one file in one folder. The file is called run.py, and then the folder is called application. So inside of application, I have two other folders. There is one called static, there is one called templates. So in templates, that's we're going to keep our HTML templates. In static, that's we're going to keep our static files like CSS files and image files and other static files like forms and other stuff. We're going to keep it in static. And then for now that we have that, let's go and actually create other files inside of our application folder. So we're going to create in a file there. We're going to call it we're going to make this a package. So we're going to call it dunder init dunder.py. So dunder means double underscore in Python. So double underscore init _.py. Okay, so that makes it a package. So now that we have done that, let's go ahead and actually create another folder, and this folder is going to be called routes.py inside of our application folder. So this is a file, so it's called routes.py. That's why we're going to be picking all our routes. So this is how you create an application structure for a larger Flask application. Okay, so now let's go ahead and actually start to import, put the right things where they need to be. So you're going to go into our Danda init. Okay, Danda init.py file. So you're going to import Flask from here. So you're going to say from Flask, you're going to import importing Flask, and you're also going to be importing you're going to be importing Flask, just Flask. Yeah, so we're going to instantiate our app. Yes, we're going to call it Flask, and then underscore name. So Danda name. Okay, so if you hear me mentioning the word Danda, that means a double underscore in Python. So now that we have that, you're also going to import something called from application. You're going to be you're going to import routes. Okay, so routes, just like that. So then don't just type as I type out. Don't I'm not going to explain to you how we do these things. Like, it can take a very long time to explain to you because it has something to do with secular imports. I have to make a whole video like dedicated to it to explain this to you, but for now just type as I did. So you have just imported the Flask class, and then you have instantiated our Flask app, and then I have imported routes, and then routes, this is just a Python file right here. Great, so I'm going to now, we are done with the underscore init file. So I'm going to close that off, and then I'm going to run. From run, I'm going to say from application import import app. So I'm going to import the app, and then I'm going to go if underscore name and underscore equals to underscore main, and then Danda. You're going to run this. So app dot run, and then you can say debug equals to true. Great, so that's all we need to do for the run application. So just going to get from our applications folder, which is just a Python package, because we kept the underscore init here. We're going to import app. So the app is going to be imported from this underscore init file, and the app is simply the Flask instantiation. And then in app, we're just going to, in run.py, we're just going to run it. So we're going to import it, and we're going to do if underscore name underscore equals to string Danda main Danda, and then you're going to say app.run, and you have said debug equals to true. Great, so now we are done with the app file, so we can just go and actually close that. So we're now in our routes.py file. So in our route.py file, this is where we're actually going to create the Python route. So let's get started. So before we get started, we need to import a couple of things. So we need to say from application, we need to import the app instance, so we can use it in here. And then we're going to say from Flask import, we're going to import render template, because we need to render template. I'm also going to import url4, because we'll use the url4 to refer to our static css files. Okay, so import, and then also import pandas from, we're going to import pandas as pd, and then you're going to import JSON library, and then you're also going to import plotly that you have installed. So import plotly, and then you're also going to import plotly express as px. Great, so that's all we need. This is actually plotly.express. Okay, not plotly express. So plotly.express, you're going to import it as px. So great, so now that we have that there, let's simply go ahead and actually create our application. So if in this tutorial I assume that you have a basic understanding of Flask. If you don't have a basic understanding of Flask, I hope I have a whole series introducing you to Flask, so you can go ahead and actually check that tutorial out. Okay, so I'm going to create a simple route here. I'm going to call it route app.route, and I'm going to just be of index, right? So in here I'm just going to have a function called index. It takes in no arguments, so it's just going to return render template. So we're going to render template, and we're going to specify, you're going to call this template layout.html. Great, so what you're simply going to do is that we have created the route here, app.route, and the app, this is just at the index URL, so /, and then it is going to call this function, and this function is simply going to return is going to return a template called layout.html. Now you haven't created this template yet. I'll create it just in a moment. Okay, so this is just a decorator that is wrapped around this function. So if you don't know what a decorator is, I have a whole series on decorator on my YouTube channel. Please go and check that tutorial out. It's a whole series about decorators, so it teaches you how to create your own decorator. So if you don't know what decorator is, go and refer to that tutorial. So great, that's all we need for now. So let's go into our templates. Right, this is where we're going to create our HTML file. So I'm going to create one here called layout.html, which is the one that you're returning in here, right? Layout.html. So in here, as I'm going to create a boilerplate HTML template, I'm going to create exclamation mark. This is going to shift and then one on your keyboard and press enter. This is going to return to you the basic HTML structure. So great, now that we have that there, I'm going to just go ahead and actually write some logic for our title. So I'm going to call it this is code with Prince. Okay, this is the title. So I'm going to copy this for now, and I'm going to write in some logic here. So I'm going to write in kind of Pythonic logic here by using Ginger templating engine. So the templating engine that we are using is called Ginger. So Ginger 2 templating engine. So it allows us to write like our logic here using a kind of Pythonic syntax. Okay, so to write a logic, you have to use curly braces and then percentage signs. Okay, again, if you're not familiar with the basics of Flask, please go and check that tutorial out on introduction to Flask on my YouTube channel, where we build an expense tracker using Flask. Okay, great. So now we're just going to say if title, and then the title is something that you're going to be passing into our routes here. So let me just return in here. So I'm going to say title, and I'm going to say home. Okay, so if I pass in a title here, I can receive that title here. So I'm checking if I have passed in a title, because this is optional, right? I can pass in this title, or I can leave it out. So if I pass in the title, then what I want to do is let me just also close off this for now. Let me just type out everything, and then I'll explain to you. So I'm going to have also an else, and then at the end of the code, at the end you have to say end if. Okay, that's the syntax. Is a bit weird, but that's how it works. So I'm going to paste what I have copied here. So if title means that if you have passed in the title, I want my title of my web page should be code with Prince dash, and then I'm going to refer to that title. Okay, so this is title. So this is how you refer to variables that you have passed. So you use double curly braces, and then you pass in the name of the variable that you have passed in here. Okay, so it is going to start. For example, I have passed in home. Okay, so if the title exists, which in this case is true, it's just going to say code with Prince and then dash home. Okay, so this is dash. You can leave it out, just dash, just like the normal English dash. It's not part of the syntax. If there's no title, I'm just simply going to return code with Prince. That's all. So this is just a logic to implement the changing of the dynamicity of our page. Okay, so now I can go ahead and actually save this, and then we can go ahead and actually try it. So I'm going to go into my terminal. I'm going to clear this, do ls, and then change go Python 3 and then run.py. This is going to start our development server. So it's going to start our development server running at localhost at port 5000. So you can just click on this to take localhost at port 5000. Okay, so I'm just going to go to my web page. Since I'm already running at localhost at port 5000, I'm just going to go into the basic URL, and you can see the title of our page here. It is code with Prince and then dash home, because I passed in home. So if I come here and then change this to I can say index, I'm going to save this and then go back to the front end and then try to refresh this. You can now, it has changed to now index. Okay, so that's how the dynamic that you can do work with that. Okay, so I'm just going to call it for now home. Great, so let's go back to our layout.html file. For now, I want to include a navigation bar into our page. So I have written some Bootstrap already on my GitHub. Again, the code to this GitHub is in the description below. So I'm going to copy this navigation bar. It's just a couple of Bootstrap stuff. So okay, so before we need to do that, we need to include the Bootstrap CDN. So we can just search for it. So we can go to Bootstrap, and then you can go to Bootstrap 4. So you can search for the Bootstrap CDN, and then you can just include it there. So CDN stands for content delivery network. So I'm going to copy this and then go into my my app here, and I'm going to simply paste it right here above that logic. So great, so now that I have that, I also go back to the git their page here, and I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to go back to my here, and I'm going to paste it just right above the body right there. So great. That is just going to allow our page to have some Bootstrap style and other stuff like that. So it's just Bootstrap is just a CSS library that you're going to be using to style our page. Okay, so now that I have the Bootstrap in place, I can go ahead and actually copy this navigation bar that uses the Bootstrap classes. So I'm going to go ahead and actually copy this, and this, you can find the link is on my GitHub page. It's just a simple navigation bar that I created. So using Bootstrap, you can just go to Bootstrap, and then you can on the official page, you can search for a navigation bar, nav bar. I just customize mine to fit my needs. So you can search for a navigation bar, and then there are a lot of navigation bars. You can simply copy the code and modify it to your needs. Okay, so I've just done that, copy the code and modify it to my needs. So I'm just going to come in here and then try to refresh. This is going to display a code right here, so our navigation bar right here. So great. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and actually begin to include some fonts in here. So you can see that begin to include some CSS. So you can see that right currently my my title is not styled, and it's not using the font that I was using. So let's go ahead and actually include that. So I'm going to go into our statics, and I'm going to call it main.css. So run that. So this is going to allow us to create some CSS files, some CSS code right here. So it's just a simple CSS that I have, very simple. So I can even go ahead and actually copy this from the main page, but let's just go ahead and actually type it out. So for now, I also need to include some folders in here. So let me go ahead and actually get the folders. So I need to include some folders. These are just some font folders that I need to make this work. So I'm going to go into my desktop, and I already have cloned Plotly up here. I have cloned it. So this is on my GitHub page. So I'm going to go into the statics. I have a folder called this. So I'm going to copy these folders. These are just some fonts that I am going to be using for my application, and I'm simply going to go into our project, and then I'm going to go into static, and I'm going to create a new folder here called fonts, and I'm going to paste that in there. So paste what I have copied in there. So great. So now you can see right now I have a folder here called fonts, and it has those font files. Okay, so you can find all of this on my GitHub page. Okay, great. You can just clone the repository, and then you can get this access to these files. Okay, so the first thing that we need to write in our CSS main.css file is I'm going to write I'm going to import the forms. So to import the forms, you need to type in the following code. So I'm just going to go to my GitHub page and actually grab that code instead of you guys watching me type it out. So it's just in go back one directory, is in my static, and then I'm going to go to main.css, and then I'm going to grab those font files here. So copy that. It's just a bit lengthy to type out. I don't want you guys to watch me type out that. So now that I have that, so let me go and actually create the type in the CSS that we need. So I'm going to give it a padding of 0 pixels. Sorry, this is 0 pixels, and I'm going to give it a margin of type 0. Okay, and then I'm going to give it a font dash family. I'm going to give it a font family of work underscore sans regular. So work sans regular is just this library, this font that you have included. So I'm just going to use that for my application. Okay, and then you also need to, I'm going to also change a couple of things. So I'm going to say navbar dash text. Okay, so I'm just going to include some text. I'm going to give it a color of type this is an RGB value. So this is a RGB value. So I'm going to type make sure I keep that right. So this is an RGB value. So this is going to be 250, sorry, and then 250. Okay, it's also 250, and this is also 250. So great. So now we also have, now that we have that, we're also going to have one called navbar dash brand. So this is the one we're going to be using. So this is going to be color. It's going to have color, and the color is going to be of type RGB, an RGB value. Sorry, RGB value. This is going to be 250 again 250. That's all, and then I'm going to close off that line. And then we're also going to have a font sorry, this is font family, and then the font family is going to be lobs regular. Yeah, this is just the font that I have used here, so I'm going to copy that and then paste it here. Make sure I get the spelling right, so paste it here. Okay, great. So, and then also going to have a font size, and the font size is going to be 2.5. Okay, now that we have that, I'm also going to have a navbar brand of type hover, and then I'm simply going to have this here. I'm going to give it a color a color of RGB, so RGB, and then this is going to be 250. Great. So let me just make sure I fix that, and then you're going to have a font family, and then the font family is going to be the one that you have just specified there. Okay, great. So that's all we need for our page, our CSS. And one more thing that we need here, so I'm going to call it site dash header dash logo h1. So h1, and then this is going to be for color, is going to be a color, and then the type color is going to be an RGB value of 39 147 to 248. Great, that's all you need. And then you also need to say have a font family, and the font family is just going to be this font that you have been using, and then you're going to specify the font size, and then the font size is going to be 3 rem, and then you're going to also have the margin top, and then margin top is just going to be 2 rem right there. So great, now that you have that CSS in place, we need to now link it to our main file here. So to link it to our main file, what you simply need to do, we need to include in there some code. So what you need to do in here, I'm going to come here and I'm going to go in say this is a link, just like that, and then I'm going to close off that link. So what you're going to specify in here is going to say rel, and then this is going to be this is style sheet, and then you're going to specify href where the style sheet is found. So this is going to be this typing url underscore 4, and then the url for this is going to be static, and then this file name, and then the file name is going to be main.css, and then we're going to close off that right there. So close off that. So what this simply means is just the URL for is something that is coming from our Flask library. So we're going to say URL for is just a way to specify where the files are found for our project. So we're telling Flask to go to static, which is this folder in here, and then search for a file name called main.css, which is just our CSS file right here. So that's what this syntax simply does. And then you're going to specify in here the type, and then the type is going to be this is actually type, and the type is going to be text, and this is going to be text, and then / css. So that's all we need to do for that to work. So now that we have linked our CSS file in there, we have linked our CSS in there. Let's try to go back the front page, and now you can see we have used the nav bar right here, which is just one of our CSS classes here, and this is going to change the font of our brand name. Okay, so let's go back in here to our web page and then try to refresh this. So to refresh for the CSS to load, you need to do a hard refresh, or Control Shift and R on your keyboard. In case if you do the normal refresh it doesn't work, you need to do Control Shift and R. I don't know why Flask is like that, but yeah, that's how it is. So now that you have that figured out, let's go and then try to write our body of our application. So the body of our application is just going to be something that we're going to be using template inheritance. Okay, if you know what template inheritance is, don't worry, I'm going to explain it to you just in a moment. Okay, so I'm going to give it a bit of space here, and I'm going to create main here, and then the main is going to have a div. This is going to be a container. Okay, so it's going to be a container, and then I'm going to have a row, and then I'm going to have a call-md-12 in there, and then I'm going to have a call-sm-12, and then I'm going to have a call dash xm dash 12. okay, so great. So now that I have that in there, you're going to also have another one called ml dash this is some bootstrap classes, ml auto, and then this is going to be ml write again auto. So this is going to be some bootstrap classes that we need, so you just type it as it is. This is some bootstrap classes. I hope you're familiar with the basics of bootstrap. Okay, so now I have said that you're going to use something known as a template inheritance in Flask. Okay, so what you have created application, right? You want some parts of the UI to be inherited by other pages, so you can easily do this in Flask by using the following code. So what you're simply going to do is you're going to create in here something called, I'm going to call it blog content. Okay, and then I'm going to end that blog content right here. Sorry, this is actually here, end blog, just like that. So I'm going to save this. So what this simply does is that whenever we have inherited this template, right, all the other code, the HTML and everything above and below this part, right, above and below this part will be inherited. The only thing that will be overridden is what we place inside of this opening and closing content blocks. Okay, it might be a bit confusing, but don't worry. So if I go back to the page right now and refresh, nothing will happen because we have not written any template to inherit our current template. So I want to write a template called index, and then I'm going to go in here to my templates folder, create another one called index dot html, and then in the index.html we're going to write a very simple syntax. So I have told you that everything else will be inherited. The only thing else that will not be inherited is this part of our code. So we need to override this part of our code. So in the background, the Ginger template ending will concatenate or join everything else, including all this HTML and all the ones that are below it. It's going to concatenate it to whatever you're going to inherit. You're going to override in these blocks. Okay. So now to do the template inheritance in Flask, we need to say you need to say extends, and then you're going to specify the file that you want to extend. So this is layout.html, which is just our layout.html file. Great. So now that we have that, we can then override the content of the blog part, right? So blog content, and then I can go and actually end that blog content here. So I'm going to go and actually end that. So I'm going to end blog right there. So whatever we put inside of here, right, whatever I put inside of these blog tags, so for example, let me just return a h3, and I'm going to say hello world, and I'm going to save that. So when we go into layout, right, hello world will be passed in here. So hello world will be passed in here into as hello world. Okay, yeah, so that's what basically template inheritance is. So if I go back to the front end, and then right now I haven't passed in, we are still if you go back to our route, we are still returning layouts. So now I want to return index. Okay, save that, and then go back to our page here, and then try to refresh it. You can see now we have hello world right there. So you can see that we are returning index, and in index we did not write all of the HTML that we did because we have inherited it, and everything else above and below this blog content will be added to this part right here. So this part to be taken and injected in place of this blog content. So that's all. That's what template inheritance is all about. So great. Now that we have that, let's go back to our routes and actually write our routes to create our app. Okay, so you can write multiple routes. So you can just leave this one to be layout or something like that, but let's just create our own route. So we're going to call this the for route, we're going to return index.html. Great. Now before we return that template, we want to do a couple of operations here. So we want to draw the graph. This is graph 1, and in graph 1 what you're simply going to do is I'm going to simply create a data frame. So if you don't know what pandas is all about, I have a small series on pandas on my YouTube channel. You can check that out. So I'm just going to read in some data in here. I'm just going to read in some data. Again, I got all this code from the official Plotly documentation, so you can just go in there and then you can find this code. You can copy it and paste it in case you're not familiar with pandas. Okay, so again, if you're not familiar with pandas, I have a whole series on pandas on my YouTube channel. You can check out that. So I'm going to draw again, I got this code from the official documentation, so you can just go to official documentation and then get that code and copy and paste it here. So you can choose any graph that you want, get the code, copy and paste it in there. So now I have that, so I'm going to open df and I'm going to say x is going to be nation. Again, I got this code from the official documentation, so this is not my my own code. So I'm going to say gold, this is actually gold, and then this is silver. It's just a graph to display some mineral resources, and bronze. I'm just going to draw one graph, and then the rest will just copy and paste it there. So you can, since you can find it on the official documentation, there is no point in wasting time watching me type it out, right? So and then form input, just like that. Now that we have that, so great. So this is going to be our figure, right? It's going to be our figure if you are coming, if you have a data science background, or we have done machine learning, or did any written with data visualization in Python, you have probably know what I'm trying to do here. So I'm just going to do, I've just drawn a graph. Now I want to convert this graph into JSON and then send it to the HTML part, and then call a JavaScript to render that JSON. So that's what you're simply going to do. So I'm going to call it, I'm going to go graph one JSON. And this graph one JSON is just going to be a JSON library that you've imported, and you're going to dump s. So we're going to dump s, and we're going to pass in our figure one, call this figure one, and then cls is going to be so this is going to be plotly utils, and then this is plotly utils and dot plotly JSON encoder, just like that. So we're going to say this is the CLS, is just going to be class, is going to be plotly dot utils dot plotly JSON encoder. That's all we need to do. So now that we have that, I'm simply going to return in here. So you can see we can pass in our values to our templates, right? So I'm going to pass in this value into our index file. So I'm going to pass in here graph. This is going to be graph object. So JSON graph one. This is going to be graph that one. So great. So we're going to pass in this to our HTML, and we are going to refer to it using this name within our HTML, and the content that is referring to is this graph object variable here, and it's simply a JSON version of our plotly express file, plotly express graph or chart or figure. Okay, great. So now that we have that in there, we can go into index, right, and then we can add in some code here. So let's go back to our index HTML file, and then we need to add in some content here. So instead of just returning this div with hello world, I'm going to return something else. So I'm going to pass in a class here, and then the class is going to be site dash header dash logo, and this is just from our main dot from our CSS file right here. So I'm going to pass in that, and I'm going to pass in a h1 here, and then the h1 is simply going to return the name of our page, right? So called it prints, and then we're going to pass in a class here. So we're going to say class, and then the class is going to be text dash center, just like that. So we're going to return the text center in there, and then we're going to pass in here dot we're going to pass in row. This is a row, and then we're going to give it a padding of -4. This is just some Bootstrap classes, and I'm going to have a card here. So I'm going to create a card. This is just a Bootstrap card, so I'm just going to type it in here quickly. So card, and then the card is going to have margin dash auto, and then sorry, this is margin auto, not margin left auto. So margin auto, and then we need to also include some styles in here. I have some custom styles, so I'm going to say width. I'm going to give it a 90% of the page. Okay, great. So now that we have that in there, let's go down here, and then what I'm going to do is just going to create the card body. So card dash body, and then we're going to create a chat body, and I'm going to have a div here called I'm going to create a div object, and I'm going to give it an ID. It's going to be ID is going to be chat. I'm going to call it chat1, and then that's all we need. And then I'm going to create a paragraph here, just a simple paragraph. It's just going to be a paragraph, so I'm going to go to lorem to generate some random text. So I'm going to go for 80 and then run that. So it's going to generate for us some random text. I think this is Latin text, I'm not sure. So now that we have generated the random text, let's go back to our page right now, and let's try to check it out. So I'm going to go in here and then try to refresh this. So the server has stopped, So if you're writing the code and you do a syntactical error, it will stop. So you just need to restart it again using python run.py. So great, we can now refresh this. And now this, let's see how it's going to be looking. So it's taking a bit of time to load, so let's just come in here. So what you've simply done is that you have created this part is to return the head. It's just the text that is going to stay on top of our page, and then this part is what you're going to have. We have created a row. It's going to be a row, and the row is going to consist of a couple of cards. So this is the first card, and you have just simply return in the card body. You have to return this text, and you're going to return. We also have a div here. This is actually div. We have a div here called have an ID with called chat. So this is the we're going to use this to get this. We're going to use this ID to get this div, and inside of this div, we're going to plot our graph. So let's just go back in here and let's check. You can see we have that right there. So our graph is supposed to be above this text, and it is going to be right inside of here. So we're going to use the JavaScript to get this text, right, to get this div, and then inside of this div, you're going to plot our graph. Great. So now let's just move down here, and then down here, right, you're going to include some JavaScript and other stuff here. So we're going to say plotly CDN. So plotly CDN, so this is just a content delivery network. For plotly means that you don't have to install plotly using JavaScript in order to use this. So I have the CDN, I've already copied it. It's on my GitHub page, so let's just go and grab it from there. And again, this link, you can find this link in the description of the video in case you want to get access to this, or you can just search for plotly CDN online and you also get it that way. Okay, so let me just copy it from there quickly, and then we can save us a lot of time. So I'm just going to copy this right here, copy that, and I'm going to go into our page and I'm going to paste it here. So this is just the plotly content delivery network. Means that you don't have to install plotly in order to use it in JavaScript. Okay, so I'm going to have a script tag here. So in this script tag, I'm going to have a variable called I'm going to call it graph1. And the graph1 is just going to refer to I told that to access variables from that you have passed in here, right? To access these variables, we need to use the double curly braces. So I'm going to copy this in here, what I have passed in here. I'm going to copy this variable name, and to access it in here, I'm going to use the two curly braces, and I'm going to get it that way. And I'm going to use the pipe symbol, and I'm going to type in here safe. So safe is just to enable some security features. Okay, so now that we have that, let's go ahead and actually plot it. So we're going to go plotly. This plotly class, right, is going to come from this CDN. Okay, so you don't have to worry about where I'm getting it. So plot, you're going to plot, and then you're going to plot where do you want to plot it. We want to plot it right here in this div. So I'm going to pass it here, passing that ID. And then we're going to say now the graph that you want to plot, and I'm going to mine is simply graph1, and then you can pass in here an empty object just like that, and then you can save it. So that's all we need to plot that graph. So I'm going to go back to the front end, go back to our page, and then try to refresh this. So I'm going to do a hard refresh, Control Shift and R. Now you can see we have that graph right there. So it's very, very simple to create that graph. So now that we have the graph, we can simply do the same thing for the other parts of the code. So you can see if you come back here to routes, we can do the same thing for other parts of the code. So now let's do this one more time, and then let's and then we can go ahead and actually do the CSS animations and JavaScript animations on fade, on scroll and stuff like that. So I'm going to come in and call graph. This is graph 2. So for graph 2, I'm going to call it graph. I'm going to create a df here. I'm going to get another data frame, and I'm going to call it px.data. Again, I got all this code from the official documentation, so you can just go there, grab the code, find a figure that you want to plot, grab the code, and then try to reverse engineer and play around with it. So this is going to be a scatter plot, a scatter underscore scatter 3D plot, and then you're simply going to pass in our df, and then you're going to pass in our x, and our x is going to be sepal length. This is the Iris data set, very famous data set from machine learning, data science, and other fields like that. So sepal underscore width, and then you're going to also provide the x. Sorry, this actually is a z, right? So because the tree is going to be a three-dimensional graph. So this is the petal underscore width. Okay, so the petal width, so the width is going to be coming in there. And then you're going to specify the color. We can specify the color to be species, and then we can specify the title of our graph. So title, and then the title is going to be iris data set. Okay, great. So now that we have that graph in there, we're going to go ahead and actually copy this, create the JSON of it, and then you're going to pass it down here. So come down, pasting that in there. Make sure that I get the indentation right. So this, we're going to call this graph2 JSON. So this is going to be figure 2, and then you're going to copy this and you're going to pass it down here. Okay, so I'm going to go figure 2, and then figure 2 is going to be equals to figure 2. Great, that's all we need to do. So now we can go back to our index.js file, and then in index.js file we can just copy this card body and duplicate it. So copy it and then paste it here. Okay, great. So make sure we got it right. So now that we have that, we can just change this to be chat2. Sorry, I didn't actually copy the card right, so let me just undo that. So this, the card actually starts from here, right? So the card starts from here, so I'm going to copy that and then paste it here. Okay, this is actually chat2, so I'm going to change that to chat2, and then I'm going to copy this part of the code, copy it, and then do the same thing, right? So it's just chat2, and then in here we can just fix that indentation. This is actually chat2, change everything in here to be 2, right? And then this should be chat2 as well, graph2, and that's all we need to do. So we can go back to the front end, and then we try to refresh this. The server has stopped, so I need to restart my server, and then I need to go in here, and then I can do a refresh, and then this should now show both chats. So it doesn't show both chats, so let's see where the error is. So we're getting graph equals plotly express. Let's check if the server is running. Yeah, it is. Graph is plotly express JSON1 save, and then this is JSON2, and then the graph, and then you have passing the graph. So this is actually chat2. Yeah, that's why it's getting that error. So now we go back in here and then try to refresh this. We still don't, that doesn't work. So let's try to inspect this page to see what's the cause of the error. So let's just go into console and then unquote reference. So let's see. Okay, I think we have made a mistake here, so let me just go back to routes. We called it, this is actually graph2. I called it 21 instead of graph2. Okay, that's why we are getting that error. So make sure I save that right, and then go back to the front end. Hopefully everything works fine, and now we got back an error. So let's see what we got. JSON2 is not defined, so let's see. JSON2 yeah, so that should be fine. So let me just go back to index, and then this is JSON2 chat2. Let me just save this again and then try to do a hard refresh. We still get back the error. So let's see here our templates. So the error is here, templates JSON1 JSON2 equals to graph JSON2. Okay, I did a typo in there, so sorry for that, guys. This is actually graph, it has a H on it, so this graph, and this is also graph. Yeah, so let's try it now to refresh it. Hopefully I didn't make any more typos. Okay, so let's just wait for that to load up. So now you can see we have those two graphs right there. So you can just, it has the same functionality to zoom in and all that other stuff. So let me just go ahead and actually copy the last graph from my GitHub page, and then I'm going to paste it in there. Copy this. Now let me just get the one from the graph itself, from the routes, and I'm going to copy and paste it in there, and then we can go ahead and actually pass it in there. So I'm going to copy all of this, just copy this, and then I'll pass it in there. Copy that, and then I'll go in here, and then I'm going to paste it right here above here. I'm going to go graph 3, and then I'm going to paste that in there. Okay, remove that out. So now that we have that, this is graph 3, so I'm just going to pass it in here to our template. So this is going to be v. Let me just undo this. So just make sure I get this right. Copy this and then paste it in here, and then refer to it like that, and then you go back to our index file, and then you're simply going to copy this and paste it and change this to be 3. Okay, so move this properly and then change this to be graph 3, and then this should be 3, and then this should be 3. Great. And now we need to create a card for it, so we're just going to paste that card right here, and then this is going to be 3. That's all we need to do. So let's go back to the front end, and then let's go back to our site, try to refresh this, and then we should see those 3 graphs right there. So now those graphs are showing. Like, let's make the animation. We have an error right here, so let me just check where that error is occurring. So let's go to our index file, and then let's see. So this actually graph, this actually index chart 3, not chart 2. That's why it's merging those 2 charts right there. So let me just refresh this for now, and our graph should be working fine. So now that we have our graphs, let's go ahead and actually make the fade in and fade out animation. So you're going to be using a library called AOS. Like, I found this library online, so you can find this GitHub repository. I'm going to leave the link in the description in case you're interested in this GitHub repository. So first we need to copy the C. I'm going to go to the front to my layout.html file, and I'm simply going to paste it here because I want all my inherited templates to be able to access it. Okay, great. So now I'm also going to go ahead and actually grab this part, and I'm going to paste it in here. So I'm going to go at the bottom here, and I'm going to just after the Bootstrap links, and I'm going to paste it in here. So I'm also going to copy this part of the code, and I'm going to paste it in index here. I'm going to paste it here. Just after the plotly, I'm going to paste that in there. So great. So now that we have that in there, let's go ahead and actually begin to customize our page so that it can be so that it can use actually we don't need this in here, so I can just remove that. We don't need that in there. So what we need to do right now is just keeping the animations right here. Again, you can read the GitHub documentation. It's actually will detail OS X, and then I'm going to say this is equals to, this is going to be slide dash up. Okay, and then I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to refer it to the other cards. So paste that there. This is going to be slide, let me just check it out. This is going to be fade left, so this is fade dash left, and this is going to be fade dash right. So I'm going to copy this again, and then change that left to be right. So copy that and then bring it here, paste it. This should be right, just like that. And then yeah, that's basically it. So this is right. So let me just check it out to make sure I got everything right. So yeah, it has the documentation here, so you can shift fade up and other stuff like that. So yeah, that's all I want for now. So this is okay, and you can find other online documentation that gives you greater detail than this one. So this actually, let's add this to be fade right. Let's change this to be fade. I think there's one for up, I'm not sure. Let's just leave it to be left for now. I'm not sure, but there's left, there is right. Let's just leave this to be left, and then this one is going to fade upwards. Okay, great. So now that we have that, that's all we need for now. Let me just go back in here, and then let's try to check if it's working, and then try to refresh this. This should be fading in from the left, so you can see that. And then if I scroll, all the other pages appear. You can see this one. Okay, great. So now it's a bit fast, and I want to make this a bit slower. So also here I want to give my card some padding and stuff like that. So I'm going to give it some margin bottom, so and other stuff like that. So I'm going to give it a margin bottom of 4 so that our cards can be spaced out a bit. So copy that and paste it in here, and then also move up here, and then also paste that in here. Great. And then yeah, that's all we need to do. So I'm going to go back to our layout.html, and in here I'm going to pass in, I'm going to pass in an object, and I'm going to say offset, and offset you're going to say its default is 400. So, and then you're going to also say duration, so that I can make it a bit slower. So I'm going to specify in there 1 second. Okay, this is not actually Yeah, so that's all we need to do. So now if I go back to the page, this should be the transitioning should be much a bit slower. So let's refresh that, and then let's see how it looks like. So now you can see the transition a bit slower. So if I come down here, you can see it fades in slow and nice. So great. So the bootstrap margin bottom actually doesn't reflect. So let's see why that's not working. So margin bottom is 4, and then margin auto, I think we can just change this to be margin left, right? Margin left should be auto, and then margin we can also include the right one, margin right dash auto. Okay, so let's try to refresh this, and then go back to our page, try to refresh this. Let's check if it works. Yeah, it works for this one. So let's just copy that code, and then because I said margin auto, so it does for all the other sides. So I'm going to paste that in there, and then also here, paste that also here, and then save that. So go back and refresh this. Now you can see this per card should be well spaced out. So great, you can see now the cards are well spaced out, and then if I scroll down, the card will appear. If I can scroll down here, the card will move down here. So you can see I can even zoom in and other stuff like that, examine this 3D graph. You can also download this graph. So if you download this is going to download a PNG image on your file. So this should pop up right here. You can see it has already downloaded, so I can go ahead and actually open that, and it is going to open for us the image of this file. So that's how we can go ahead and actually create this file. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial so far. So if you enjoyed this tutorial, please kindly give my channel subscribe, like this video, and press the notification bell for other videos like this into data science, machine learning, web development, building dashboards. Okay, so if you're interested in those stuff, kindly consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Keep safe.